This video is brought to you by Squarespace. For 8 years, Nintendo has been on the top with their well-priced Switch, great and consistent game releases, and a reputation that most game companies dream of. But ever since the Switch 2 Direct happened, things have taken a turn for the worst. A $450 Switch 2, Mario Kart World priced at $80, horrible communication across the board, confusing Switch 2 Edition deals, overpriced accessories, $10 for a game that should be a pack-in. Did a new Nintendo take over? No. This is the usual. Nintendo's just recently sold us a $100 alarm clock, $70 for cardboard, and have dropped game vouchers and gold coins for seemingly no reason. This has been a weird time for someone like myself, and I'm not used to seeing so many people complain about game prices coming from Nintendo. And I can sympathize with the frustration. The economy is in rough shape right now, and I don't see a lot of people that I know even personally that'll be getting one. But now that some time has passed, I wanted to sit down and really try to analyze if the Switch 2 is actually gonna flop, or if the internet's just been overreacting. Before going into this, I just want to say that I will only be talking about US game prices. I know that the Switch 2 and its games are different in other countries, but I'm not from those places and I don't know the average income anywhere else besides here, so I won't be talking about them. The $80 price tag has been talked about to death at this point, but it really makes a bold statement. Nintendo is willing to sacrifice the quantity of game sales and squeeze more money out of each person that buys the game. You know, Nintendo was nervous and insecure about doing this because they didn't bring up the price in the Direct, whereas typically they would be confident and share everything with us. But at the same time, hasn't Nintendo and most AAA game studios already been charging over $60 to $70 a game? Let's just be real here. If you're watching or listening to this video, odds are you've already paid over $80 for at least a couple Switch 1 games and didn't think twice about it. Let's look at a game like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It costs $60, which is an insane value for how much is included, but it also offers a Fighter Pass for $25. Then there's a second Fighter's Pass for $30, and if you get all that DLC, our new total for the game is $115. But there's also the Mii costumes, which seem cheap at 75 cents each. However, there's 52 bundles, and if you were to get them all, it would cost $39. So really, for the full package, Smash Bros. Ultimate cost us $154. Or how about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, another game priced at $60. Except, wait, the Booster Course Pass costs $25, so that full title is actually $85, which is very close to how much Mario Kart World is. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This one also has an expansion pass for $20 that includes 2 different DLC packs, which raises the total to $80. Splatoon 2 has the Octo expansion for $20, which makes that game's total price $80. Then Splatoon 3 offers the Inkopolis and Side Order DLC for $25, making this game $85. Animal Crossing New Horizon also has a Happy Home Paradise expansion for $25, which makes that game $85. Pokemon Sword and Shield each have their own expansion pass for $30, which raises the price of both games from $60 to $90. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC for $35. So for both games, it goes from $60 to $95. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker adds in a special episode pack for $6, making the full game $66. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has the expansion pass for $30, driving the total to $90. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 also has an expansion pass for $30, making it another $90 game. And I think you get my point by now. Now, obviously, not everyone is buying this stuff, but I think it's important to point out that we've already shown Nintendo that we are willing to dish out $80 to $90 per game. And of course, there's a difference between paying extra for DLC and paying $80 for just the base game, but that's not really the point. The matter of the fact is, we've shown Nintendo that we're willing to dish out $80 to $90 for just one game, and Nintendo is simply taking advantage. It just hasn't been as in our face until now. And look, I'm not justifying the $80 price tag. I'm just saying that a lot of us are already paying these high prices, but just in the form of multiple payments. Now, of course, some of these DLC packs are already included for free in Nintendo Switch Online's expansion, but it's not free. You are actively paying a subscription for DLC that you won't own if you stop paying the subscription. So is it really a deal at the end of the day? You know, it's kind of funny, because I remember when Nintendo first introduced DLC to their games in the 2010s, and people were outraged, just like they are with $80 games. But now, people beg Nintendo for DLC. I can't tell you how many people, including myself, that want Nintendo to release DLC packs for games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Tears of the Kingdom, and Mario Odyssey. Like I said, we could not possibly be incentivizing them more to raise the prices. We've been trained to want DLC, and we might soon be trained to buy $80 games. And now that we've seen the Mario Kart World Direct, we have a pretty good idea of all the content that's included in the game. I'm personally super excited to play it, but it also doesn't do anything new and revolutionary in the racing sphere, so I can see a lot of people waiting to buy this one or just not getting it at all. This decision is just pure greed on Nintendo's part. The Switch 2 Welcome Tour game is not worth $10. It's not even worth $5. There's no reason they couldn't have packaged this in with the Switch. I got to play a little bit of this game at the Switch 2 event that I went to earlier this month, and yep, it's a tutorial alright. When the Switch 2 comes out, I'm gonna check out the entire thing and see what it all has to offer, but it really should have just been free from the get-go. The funniest part about this game is that Reggie has tweeted out a snippet about packing in Wii Sports, essentially roasting Nintendo for not including Welcome Tour as a pack-in game. If you have the Reginator on your bad side, you f***ed up. Even the PS5 at its exuberant cost includes Astro's Playroom, an actual proper game that takes a few hours to beat. Out of everything that we've talked about price-wise, the accessories are an extra painful cost that I'm not seeing a lot of people go over. And they got even more expensive recently because of the unpredictable market that's currently happening. Or Nintendo's just taking advantage, it doesn't actually matter to them. I imagine a lot of these extra things aren't going to be purchased because of the upfront costs that already exist for the Switch in just a couple of games. For one, we've got the Switch 2 Pro controller at $85. It's only $15 more than the Switch 1 controller, so it's not the most egregious price increase. But then we've got the Joy-Con 2 controllers at $95. We're gonna have to hope the Joy-Con drift doesn't exist, because replacing these for $95 is insane for just a controller. The craziest cost, however, is the Switch 2 dock at $120. Switch 1 docks were already ridiculous at $90, but now it's over $100. Why would anyone get a second or third one? It's just for the sake of convenience. I can't imagine these standalone docks are going to sell that well. I have a few Switch 1 docks in random places around my house, and I bought these things slowly because of how spendy they are. I don't see myself getting more than maybe one extra dock. The cost is just absurd. Again, the point of the Switch 2 is to be more premium, and it definitely is, but these prices are probably not going to end up selling a lot of units. Honestly, I don't think this price is that unreasonable, especially considering how powerful the Switch 2 truly is. I think what's really surprising about all this is that Nintendo is known as the value brand. People don't expect top-of-the-line graphics from Nintendo, and yet they decided to focus on that for the Switch 2. What I find so interesting about this approach is that this is literally exactly what everyone was asking for. Yeah, for the past 2 to 3 years, everyone was begging Nintendo, please don't make a gimmicky console, just make the Switch again, but more powerful. And by God, they did it. They actually listened and did it. But them doing that comes at a cost. And I think it's a cost that its fans weren't ready for. 4K output with HDR and 120 FPS on the tablet isn't cheap to produce. But real quick, let's talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. This is the best and most powerful place to create the slickest websites. New to Squarespace is the Fluid Engine, a next-generation design system that makes it even easier to make a website. There's also Squarespace extensions that connect your stored and vetted third-party tools to extend functionality, and the analytics page makes it easy to see who's visiting your site and where people are coming from. I've updated my site this year and added a small blogging section, where I'll write a bit about any specific game I've played. This month, I've written about Sonic Mania. So with that, go to squarespace.com/Nathaniel to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link is in the description. It's kind of amazing how much Nintendo has tripped over their messaging just trying to talk about Switch 2 Edition games. You would think it'd be simple, but Nintendo made it really confusing and shared tiny pieces of information as the following weeks have gone by. The best way to boil it down is the cost for each upgrade is split into 3 tiers. A Switch 2 Edition game is either free, $10, or $20. The free games will get upgrades on performance and might add extra features like Game Share. These include ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3 3D World, Clubhouse Games, Link's Awakening, Echoes of Wisdom, Game Builder Garage, New Soup U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Big Brain Academy. I'm glad that a nice chunk of first-party games are getting these updates to begin with, especially Scarlet and Violet since that one runs so badly. And I imagine more are on the way too, as I'd like to see Age of Calamity and the Xenoblade titles get these performance updates as a couple examples. But then we get to the $10 upgrades, or the ones that come included with the Switch Online expansion pack. What's been confirmed is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The graphics are improved, and you also get to use this new Zelda Notes app, which has a large variety of features. While this is neat and is also free of charge, I don't really know if this warrants the extra $10. As for the app, do people really want to go back and forth between using their phone as a GPS and playing the game? That just doesn't sound that fun if you ask me. They also added the option to share items and auto build, which is cool, but why wasn't this just built into the game itself? What's insane though is that the Switch 2 edition of Breath of the Wild doesn't come with a DLC, which means that if you don't own the game and want the DLC, you would be paying $90 for the entire game. Now, I'm sure most people outraged by this already have the DLC, but even still, this is just mean. We all know deep down that Nintendo is just a corporation like the others and they don't actually care about us, but can you not throw us at least this bone? Like, really? Pretty much every video game that's ever had DLC that gets a re-release includes the DLC. It's crazy they aren't doing that with a game that's this old. This is setting a really bad example for everyone else, by the way. Oh, I can't wait for other AAA studios to start doing this to rip off their customers more. Just wait until the Smash Bros. Ultimate Switch 2 edition comes out and that doesn't have the DLC. That's gonna be one heck of a shit show. And we don't even know how much Pokemon Legends EA and Metroid Prime 4 will cost, but they'll likely be $10 as well. Metroid Prime 4 adds mouse support and different display options, which I guess I can understand the reasoning to pay extra for that. Pokemon, on the other hand, doesn't make much sense to me. On their site, it says we get improved performance with higher frame rate and resolution. Okay, why isn't this a free upgrade with the other games? Oh, wait, because it's Pokemon and it will sell well no matter what. Got it, that's just wonderful. But then we have the $20 upgrades, and honestly, I think these are priced fine. We've got Super Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby in the Forgotten Land with brand new content on top of improved visuals. Jamboree adds in a bunch of new mini-games and uses the Switch 2 camera, and also adds a couple extra modes with the mouse controls and microphone. It's nothing too crazy, but it's a lot of extra effort for what it's worth. Then Kirby in the Forgotten Land has a new story mode, so out of all these games, I think these two games warrant the extra price tag out of them all. I won't have much to say about this, but the C button is one of the most underwhelming features that the Switch 2 has. It is literally just voice chat with super laggy game share and facecam capabilities. I still can't get over how this looks exactly like Discord when you're screen sharing with someone else. I mean, they even copied the green border when someone is talking. This will be a fine enough addition to the console, but it's gonna cost money. That's right, starting in March of 2026, you will only be able to use the voice chat if you pay for the Switch Online membership. While I'm sure a lot of people already pay for it and won't think twice, that means the C button is a paid button. This is stupid as shit. Forcing people to pay for voice chat has completely killed your opportunity for people using it for most of the Switch 2's life. People will just continue to use Discord to communicate because it's free. This is such a huge misstep that it's just baffling. Amiibo originally released at $12.99, which was a sweet price for how small these figures were. A few years later, they got a price increase to $15.99 outside of a few exceptions, and it stayed that way for a while, at least until now, because Nintendo's newest lineup of Amiibo are $29.99, with the Street Fighter ones being $39.99. I'm a guy that owns every single physical Amiibo, and I'm not buying these. I mean, my god, talk about a ripoff for figures that aren't even that high in quality. You might as well get a larger figurine for about the same cost. I can't believe I'm going to actually talk about the economy, but this will be the one and only time that I will do so. Look, if you're an adult right now, you already know how hard it is to just get by these days. A large majority of people that want to buy the Switch 2 won't simply because of the cost. For decades, Nintendo has been the value brand of video games. People like to buy Nintendo games because they're good deals. As far back as the Nintendo 64, Nintendo has been offering ways to purchase their games for a cheaper price. While the Super Nintendo introduced the Player's Choice moniker, the Nintendo 64 started to lower the cost of their games when labeled as such. N64 games cost around $60 at the time, but the Player's Choice version was $40. The GameCube had the same thing, with the original games being $29.99 and Player's Choice $19.99. The Game Boy Advance also did this. The original games were sold around $30 to $40, while the Player's Choice versions were $20. This was rebranded to Nintendo Selects during the Wii era, with certain Wii games going from $49.99 to $19.99. The 3DS also got the Nintendo Select treatment, with games going from $39.99 to $19.99. For 3 decades, Nintendo has been doing this with their games. But you know what we haven't seen from the Nintendo Switch yet? Nintendo Selects. And guess what? It's not happening this time. And here's why. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold 67 million copies, Animal Crossing 47 million, Smash Bros. Ultimate 35 million, Breath of the Wild 32 million, Super Mario Odyssey 29 million, Pokemon Sword and Shield 26 million. I could go on for ages. Nintendo has never been this successful with software sales. Why would they lower the price? That's just wasting money to them. If people are still buying the games in droves, might as well keep the value of the games up, right? Well, things are a bit different from the Switch 1 era to now. First off, the concept of the Switch was and still is genius. That alone sold millions of people. But the games and consoles were also more affordable. The economy was not as unstable as it is right now. And I don't want to hear people say that the Switch 2's cost now matches with inflation and it's fair. Sure, the cost of the console matches, but you know what isn't matching? The average American salary. The median household income as of 2025 ranges a lot, but the majority of people are making around $75,000 to $80,000 a year. That equates to around $6,200 to $7,300 per month. Sounds like enough money to buy a Switch 2, right? Well, we do have to pay to live somewhere, so let's talk about that briefly. If you want to buy a house, the average price is currently around $360,000 with a 6% interest rate. So let's say you bought a house on a 30-year loan for $300,000 at 6% and your down payment was 10%. That would make your mortgage payment, including property tax, insurance, and HOA fees, to be around $2,100 a month. Let's go back to that average salary, and yeah, that mortgage payment alone chews up a massive chunk of money, and that's before paying for food and all the other bills we've got. But what about renting? Well, that's currently around $1,600 to $1,700 a month, so while it is cheaper, it's still spendy and you don't build equity. Now, obviously, everyone has different income levels, and every state is going to have different prices in terms of how much things cost. The point, however, is that living in America currently isn't cheap in a lot of places, and people will skip out on entertainment. I'm not going to talk about the tariffs, as that's currently a huge toss-up and nobody knows how that's going down, but that could raise the prices even more on a lot of different goods. I mean, it just happened with the Switch 2 accessories. With all this happening over the past few years, Nintendo has completely failed at reading the room, which is a big problem because America is one of their biggest markets. So, can Nintendo fix this? It's really hard to tell right now, but unfortunately, I don't see the Switch 2 being that big of a success. They completely flopped their first impression, and messing that up has set Nintendo on an uphill battle. They're gonna have to change something. Sure, the Switch 2 will probably sell out in its first year because of people like me, but what about after that? Is the random person 2 years from now really gonna walk into Walmart and spend $450 on a Switch 2 and then $80 on Mario Kart when so many people are already living paycheck to paycheck? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo eventually brings back Nintendo Selects because at this price point, I don't see these games selling that well. I can kind of understand the reasoning to keep your price up to hold the value of the IP, but a big reason people bought these games to begin with is because they were $60. They were a value. That's Nintendo's reputation. And here they are, just slowly throwing it away. Look, I'm still really excited for the Switch 2, don't get me wrong. the games look incredible, and I'm going to be playing them regardless of the cost. But that's just me and probably the people watching a video like this. It'll be very interesting to see how Nintendo is going to do in the Switch 2 generation, because they're taking a big risk by alienating a lot of their customer base. I should end things by saying, hey, if you're okay with the prices, then more power to you. Whether you're buying a Switch 2 or not, there's no right or wrong opinion here. Everyone has different preferences when it comes to their buying wants and power. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back very soon.